Welcome back to this retrospective slash review for Batman Arkham Asylum. And I wanted to go ahead and, first I'll need to delete this game because I would like to have the game run in the background as I basically, talk about it because it does give a nice, view of things as you're going along. But basically, I want to talk not only about my thoughts on the game, but just also some perspectives about playing it on Linux. So that's kind of doing this video again because I completely forgot to mention that. But let me go ahead and start about talking about the game first. This is one of the few games that I've actually gone back to and I played it more than once. And it's technically the same game. So this is definitely one of those rare breed of games that I liked enough where I actually did want to play it again. But it's even more of a rare breed in the fact that this is the only game that I've gotten all the achievements on two times. Because I did play this originally when it came out on the Xbox 360. Actually, I don't know when I played it. It may have been after it came out. But I did play it on the 360 and I completely mastered it there. And, several years later, I bought it on Steam for a pretty cheap price, actually. And that's something I would like to point out is like this game is fairly cheap on Steam, and I think it is available on other platforms as well. But I bought it on Steam, and as you can tell, I played it now, and once again, I have gotten all 47 achievements, and actually, pretty happy with doing that. So I didn't feel like it was something like, man, I got to go ahead and get all my achievements again. It's like, no, I actually liked the game enough where that wasn't really, something I felt like I had to do, like out of I don't know, requirements or something. It's just like I actually kind of wanted to do it. So this game, I mean, from a graphical perspective, I think it still holds up to this day. I mean, the animations can be a little stiff here and there, but for the most part, I mean, it's still a very good game to look at. Uh, Still holds up to this day. Um, the music is very atmospheric in the game, and I think it does a very good job of just providing a great backdrop. Basically, the story and story is probably one thing that some people in hindsight will try to probably criticize it for, because if you compare it to some of the later Arkham games, the story is noticeably shorter than the other games. Um, and the area that you play in is noticeably smaller than, say, Arkham City or Arkham uh, Arkham City, or was it Arkham Knight? Yeah, it's noticeably smaller than both of those two games. But at the end of the day, that's not really a bad thing. I think it does keep things a little focused and on track, and you don't get lost with too many side quests and other branches of the tree, as it were. So from that perspective, I think the actual storyline is fine. It's very well contained, and it's a good storyline. I think the storyline is it's really awesome. And one of the things about this game that I really liked, because at the time I'd read some Batman comics, but not a huge amount. And some of the comics I had read, the one by Grant Morrison about Arkham Asylum, I forget what it's called, it's like Insane Place on Insane Earth or something like that. I keep forgetting the full name because it's a big long comic title, but basically the Arkham Asylum one where Batman goes inside Arkham Asylum and Joker takes over. This game provides a huge homage to that comic for sure, and there's a lot of little comic Easter eggs and things strewn throughout this video game that's just really awesome. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why I really wanted to get more into the Batman comics and I wanted to collect a lot more, is because of a lot of the Easter eggs and whatnot that were here in this game just made me want to actually go back and read some of these older comics that I never read before. And so, yeah, I did. I've actually got an insanely large collection of Batman comics now, mostly in part due to this game, and and that's definitely just the hallmarks of somebody who just they've done a good job to get you to want to actually go out and do something like that for sure. Um, the voice acting, the voice acting in this game is just awesome, and I may be painting a big target on my chest by saying this, but I never actually watched Batman the animated series when it came out back in the 90s. I never saw that. And so this is literally my first exposure to the voice actors for Batman and the Joker. And oh man, I can't believe I'm blanking on the name of who did the voice acting for Batman. I know Mark Hamill did the Joker, but I mean, this is my first exposure to them, and I was like, wow, these guys, they're awesome. They definitely embody everything about the characters that they play. And this is a game where I think when I first realized it's like most of my exposure to Batman at the time had been, most of the movies and whatnot, and just a little bit of comics. But I realized that this was the first game, the first thing that I had ever saw where they got Batman right, and they actually focused on his abilities as a detective as well as an amazing martial artist as well. So everything about this game is so comics accurate. It's amazing. I think it's just great. I mean, Killer Croc, this guy coming out right now, I had actually never even heard of Killer Croc until I saw this game. And when I saw Killer Croc, I was like, wow, he's kind of nasty. And like I said, it was just one of those things where I wanted to actually get more into the comics and find out about it. And they just did a great job. Like from top to bottom, everything about this game is just about flawless. Um, so yeah, the story's shorter compared to some of the other ones. The explorable area is smaller, and the amount of equipment and gadgets you get as Batman is noticeably smaller than the later games as well. Also, not a bad thing. For instance, one of the achievements you get, the free flow perfection, where you've got to basically use all your gear in one free flow combo. It's actually a lot easier to pull off in this game than the later ones, and the big part of that is because you don't have so many options at your disposal. You're actually fairly limited, but at the same time, you have enough choices where you have you know a lot of good choice, but you're not overwhelmed as well. I guess that's the best way of saying it. So from that perspective, I'm not going to look at this from hindsight and say, well, Arkham City did it better. And I actually haven't played Arkham Knight yet, so I honestly don't know. I'm not going to sit here and say that the other games did it better. Well, they did it better, but they had this as their foundation. And as far as a foundation, this game is the perfect foundation for just a whole string of games that came out after it, because this is the game that set the blueprint for just a lot of gaming in general after the from the 2010s on, basically. Um, I don't really have any main criticisms of the game, and let me go ahead and just talk about from a Linux perspective real quick, because as you can tell, I did my entire playthrough running on Linux, and it was flawless. Now, I did go on Proton DB, and I looked at different entries that people had done there, and I've also provided my own now. But basically, I used the glorious eggroll Proton that was available at the time. For me, it was 7-18, but they've since put out new updates to that version of Proton, and it worked great. And I put in some um, launch options, and did I need to put in all the launch options I did? I don't know. But at the end of the day, the fact of the matter is, I only had the game crash me one time. And I think it crashed when I was basically swapping in and out of night vision as a somewhat scripted event was going on. I think that just caused the game to go, ah. and it crashed on me. So that was the only time I had the game crash, was one simple time. And then at the very end, there's a bit of a lag with the Joker's final movie, basically, as I went to go punch him in the face and knock him out for good. So other than that, the game performed perfectly. Couple of times I thought, oh man, is it going to lock up on me when it was loading? Just a couple of areas, literally two areas, but it only did it twice. Other than that, this game just, I mean, it worked perfectly on Linux. I didn't have any problem at all. And so if you're looking at playing this on Linux, um, it's definitely 100% something you can play from start to finish, no problem. The only thing that I wish it did right, which it does better on Windows, is the hardware physics uh, implementation. They're expecting a middleware basically that technically they haven't implemented on Linux, and I don't even know if they will get it implemented. To be honest with you, because it was such a limited time that they had that middleware going. So I know my video card is capable of doing hardware physics, but that just hasn't really been put into Linux at this point, and I just don't know if it ever will be. Who do you think you are? Anyway, um, great game. Let me talk about difficulty real quick, as I'm joined by somebody else now. Always my furry companions wanting to come in and interject themselves into my videos. Difficulty wise, I played on hard difficulty from the word go, basically. And it did take me a little bit of time to figure out, the flow of the game, because it had been a while since I had actually played it. But it wasn't one of those things where I took a long time to get back in a groove, basically. So I would say that this game, even on hard difficulty, it wasn't one of those things where it was so challenging to the point where I got frustrated. I can't say there were a lot of moments where I got frustrated. There was a couple of times, a couple of fights where it took me quite a few tries to get through it. But other than that, nothing super frustrating. Actually, I had more frustration dealing with the challenges, especially the shock and awe challenge. That one was actually pretty tough. But other than that, and be honest, if you're not one of these people that is a huge completionist, then it may not be that big of a deal to you. Oh, you can't do the detective stuff. How about that? It may not be that big of a deal to you, but um, huh, I'm getting distracted here. Very easy to do. If you're not a completionist, some of the extra challenge and whatnot, or the difficulty, comes from that sort of stuff. So the challenge mode, I should say. Outside the challenge mode, the game itself isn't very difficult. But at the end of the day, you can always put it on easy or normal mode. Um, but I was even able to play through mostly on hard mode and do well for a first playthrough. So that may not be something that you actually have to do. I think it can be challenging at times, but it's fair. I guess that's the words I want to use. It's not unfair in its challenge. So it's not overly difficult. It's definitely not a Dark Souls type of game. Which, to be fair, I actually haven't played it, but I've heard of the Dark Souls games, and they don't sound like anything I'd really be very interested in playing, to be honest with you. But anyway, um, as far as a score for this game, I think this is one of the few games that I think I really will go ahead and give it a perfect score, because I like it that much. This one is, I mean, the game itself is stable, it's fun, it's just a great game from start to finish. And like I said, it hits all the right notes, has all the right Easter eggs for fans of the comics or make people become fans of the comics. It's just a great game from beginning to end, and I highly recommend it for everybody. And it's not very expensive on Steam, so there's no reason not to give it a try. Um, if you know, and there's no reason not to give it a try if you're running Linux or you're running the Steam Deck, because you can really get it up and running with minimal effort. All I had to do is install that glorious eggroll Proton and throw in my launch options. That was it. I didn't have to go in, mess with any config files or anything. It was good to go from, well, the word go. So anyway, that'll do it for this video. I definitely highly recommend Batman Arkham Asylum to pretty much everybody, especially if you're a fan of Metroidvania games or beat 'em up style games. This is just a perfect game from start to finish. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video. I'll catch you all in the next one. Take care. Hey, don't point at me. See you all around.